Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, organizers, all the rabbis, all the people who made this happen, I want to ask all of you if I could have a little bit of the reward that you're going to have in heaven for putting these events on. It is such a special thing that you are doing here for young people. And although I don't do this anymore at all, I'm chained to the desk of my new synagogue, I made the exception for this. And I think that is how I would open with you today. The theme today has been about clarity. And I want to give you an example of what that means, about what clarity means. Last year, I stood, or 2 years ago actually, I stood at the Birmingham Olami Summit. And I told, I don't know how many, 1,800 people, I don't even know how many it was. I told an ocean of students and young professionals just like yourself about how my house was broken into. And you know, these Olami programs, they really have an impact. People really listen to the speakers and they implement whatever they hear into their lives. So I'm no different, I did the same. So right before I came on this trip, I broke into my own house. I'm not joking, unfortunately. There was a miscommunication between me and my wife. She had to take one of my children to the to a doctor's appointment. I get home and my house is locked. My passport, all my stuff, my notes, my books, everything is inside. And it's getting later and later and later. I'm supposed to leave at 2 o'clock. I call our housekeeper, who's now with my daughter, and I say, she only speaks Spanish, and I say, I really need to go, aeroporto. I think, that's how Americans like fake Spanish, Milko, cerealo, pronto. We don't know what we're doing, right? So I'm trying my best. I say, I need you to come home now. I'm not in the house. She says, I'm in the park with your daughter, with Rivka. She doesn't want to leave. Rivka's 3. I was like, I really need to go. Aeroporto, miso, plano. She probably Googled it. He says, why is he talking about Texas? Either way, so I'm sitting there, and I'm waiting for her to come back. 5 minutes go by, 10 minutes go by, 20 minutes. That's how long it should take for her to get back from Central Park. So I call her up again. I'm like, Marta, where are you? And I can hear children playing in the background. She says, oh, in the park. Rivka still no leave. I was like, what? She makes her way back. And as she gets to the front with the carriage, I was like, thank you so much. It's now a half hour late after I'm supposed to leave. I said, give me the key. She says, I don't have key. This worries me, by the way. I knocked on my next door neighbor's house. She's an old, lovely grandma. And I said, Mrs. Anita something, right? Don't judge me. This is New York City. If you know your neighbors, you're weird and stalkerish. It's a long name, very Ashkenaz with lots of consonants. If it was Sephardi, like Rahmat, I would be, but Shepolowski, Stinovich, like that, right? I wasn't sure. I said, hey, do you remember me? We almost never see each other. I live next door. She looks at me. She's like, yeah, like you're my neighbor. I was like, okay, I need to go to the back of your house so I could climb over your fence and get into this person's house. She says, sure. That worried me, by the way. Like a minute ago, you weren't even sure who I was. They got me a ladder. I climbed over the ladder. I sat there with a wire hanger, which every boy in yeshiva knows is the key to all problems. Just a wire hanger. And I managed to pry the door open and sit there for about 40 minutes until I finally got the door open. And now it's 1 hour before my flight. I get there, I'm so nervous. I get on the plane, there's no kosher food. I arrive, I don't sleep a wink. I have one of those guys, who keeps playing, the elbow game? You know that game? You knock it off and then you pretend you're sleeping. You've all done it. Don't look at me that way. I didn't sleep a wink. I got here, there's no kosher food on the plane. But I also didn't have kosher wine to distract myself from the fact, Mr. Werdiger, right? I get here and I'm thinking I'll go take a nap, but the room is not ready. I go into the room and I can't sleep. You know why? Because I'm so excited and pumped to be here. Even though it's one of those days, that, my friends, that is clarity. Clarity is when you love something so much, when it means so much to you that you're going to be able to go do this, when it's so important to you that nothing stands in your way, nothing dampens your mood, because this is what you need to be doing. I want to talk about that kind of clarity. And how does that happen? How do you become the type of person that has that kind of clarity in your own life? I want to share with you a fascinating idea to me. I hope it's fascinating to you as well. Every single one of us in this room wants to live a good life. We want it to be just a little bit like, kind of off so that we can complain, because otherwise, really, what is life about? But we want it generally to have blessings. And the Torah tells us, in this week's parasha, describes that if a person wants all the blessings of the Torah, what do they need to do? And I'm going to quote you in Hebrew, but I'll say it in English as well. Im bechukotai telechu, if you follow in my rules, in my statutes. If you follow in my statutes, if you learn my Torah, ve'et mitzvotai tishmoru, you keep my mitzvot, va'asitem otam, and you do them. The Torah gives us unbelievable blessings that are going to come our way. It's going to rain in the right time. Not only is it going to grow the trees, which are the consistent things that give you benefit and parnasah in your life, livelihood, but even the stuff that grows from the ground, the new ventures, the stuff that you need to plant newly each year. This is going to go good. You're going to have many children. There's not going to be war in your land. One blessing after the next. It's like a blessing train. But then it ends. And it says an interesting line. It says, "V'hithalachti b'tochachem," and I will walk amongst you. V'hayiti lachem elokim, and I will be for you as a God. I will be your God. V'atem tihiyuli le'am, and you will be for me as my people, as my nation. Am Yisrael. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm fascinated with text, both English, Hebrew. I used to learn to make diukim, to judge, to figure something out from something that something says. In Brisk, that's the type of learning that they love. If it said it like this, but it could have said it like that. If it could have used 2 words and it used 3 words. So I'm a didact in that way. And I noticed that this little line here at the end was kind of what I call, and what is called, a hanging modifier. Does anyone here know what a hanging modifier is? The lights are in my face. I can't see if anyone's there. I'm hoping some of you are as geeky as me and there's people that have their hands up. But if not, I'll die alone. Okay. Let me give you an example of a hanging modifier. A young man gets married. His wife says to him, "We need to go to my parents for Shabbat." They go for Shabbat. They get back. The young bride turns to her husband and says, "So, honey, how did you enjoy going to Shabbat to my parents?" And he says, "Well, I got to drive my new car down to your parents' house for Shabbat, and I loved it." That's a hanging modifier. And that's a smart husband. Because you don't know if he means he loved driving his new car or if he enjoyed spending Shabbat with his mother-in-law. That's a hanging modifier. It sits at the end of a sentence. It could be going on one or on the other. This last verse, at the end of all of the blessings, God says, "I'm going to walk with you. I'm going to be with you. V'ayiti lachem lelukim, I'll be your God. V'atem tihiu li la'am, and you will be for me as my nation." Is that part of the list of blessings? Or is that the price you pay for a new blessing? And I want to talk a little bit about what this means. There are 2 times where we find this idea. Joseph has the worst life, if you think about it. He's a young man. He has dreams, but his brothers don't understand his dreams. They don't understand. They don't get him. They sell him into slavery. He goes down. He's suspected of all sorts of things. But in the house of his master, it says, and God was with Joseph. Vayihi, and he was ish matzliach. He was a successful man. That's a much bigger blessing than any of the ones that we read about yet. All the other ones are limited. Rain, this kind of blessing, that kind of blessing. But a person who is a successful person, anything they do touches to gold, turns to gold. It's the Midas touch. How does one get the blessing of God being with you? That it says by Joseph and by King David, that God was with them and they were successful in everything that they did. How do I become successful in everything that I do? There's one requirement: to be God's people. What does that mean? How are we God's people? How do we achieve this blessing? And I want to teach this idea to you so you can take it home, implement it in your lives, and teach it to others. Because I think that this is such a beautiful and powerful idea. The Mishnah teaches us. Rabbi Omer. Rabbi asked a question. And even if all we had was the question without the answer, this would have been a worthwhile exercise because it's a piercing question. Rabbi said, Ezuhi derech yishara. What is the straight way, the correct way, sheyavor lo ha'adam, that a person should choose in their life? Now, pay attention. Rabbi didn't ask, what should I do? Rabbi asked, which path should I be on? His question is, what should I be? Look now again at those verses that I said to you in the beginning. All those blessings happen if you, all these mitzvot, va'asitem otam, and you will do them. If you do them, you get specific blessings. But if you are my people, va'atem tihiyu li, if you will be my nation, it's a difference between doing good and being good. Let me explain what this idea of being means. So much of what we do depends on our state of mind. I want you to imagine that someone tells you, you go onto this the website, you hear about an apartment, you go on this website and you check out this apartment and you see it. This probably happened to some of you. This apartment looks beautiful, nice furniture, nice things. Now, I've heard of a term called catfished in online dating. But you can be catfished by an apartment too. Bait and switch. Now you might think, okay, maybe the furniture's not included. I get that. So I went this past week to look at a house in Deal for the summer where they want me to go teach during the summer. And they told me, you know what, go to this house. I look online, it's amazing. Beautiful furniture, beautiful light, everything's amazing. And they said there was a little fire. By the way, I should have realized right then, right? There's a little fire. A couple of the rooms are not done. You know, we need you go check it out. They're fixing the rooms. It'll be done by the time you get in. Don't worry. But just go see if you like it. It'll be done in time. I get to the house. I'm such a muppet. I get to the house. I walk in. There are no walls. I don't mean that they weren't painted. There were no walls. There was no furniture, there was no walls. It was just like little bits of wood, and then like that, you know, the stuffing underneath it, you know, the kind of asbestos-y stuff that kills you, you know that stuff, right? And then there's another thing of wood, and there's on the floor is a stack of sheetrock. Anyway, I look around the house, none of the rooms have walls. I still remember the chutzpah of this real estate agent. She says to me, yes, she has her bag on her head, you know. She goes, so what do you think of the house? I said, I'd love to give you an opinion. I haven't seen it yet. She goes, this is the kitchen. This is the living room. I was like, how can you tell? So you know what, when someone tells you, now I'm in the state of mind that if someone says that there's a real estate agent who's gonna show me a place, do you know the state of mind I'm in now? Oh, I'm shrewd now. I've learned my lesson. I'd like to show you an apartment. Does it have walls? So are the floors included? You know, I see here in this contract, I'm not sure what this is over here. Would you mind telling me what this is? That's my name. Now you're looking at everything. You're so suspicious. The state of mind that you're in dictates the way that you act. So Rabbi Yehuda, Rebbe is asking, how should we be? If you could choose one thing to be as a Jew, what would you be? What a fascinating question. Even without the answer. The answer that the Mishnah gives is amazing. I'm going to give you one interpretation. The answer the Mishnah gives is kol shehi tiferet leoseha. Anything which is great, is glory, is amazing for you, the one that does it. V'tiferet lo min ha'adam. And his glory is an amazing thing for all the other people in the world. That's the road. That's how you be. The commentators explain that what Rabbi Yehuda was saying is it good for you? Does it light your fire? Are you excited? Is it also good for everybody else? That's how you choose. Balance, equilibrium. The Torah asks of us to be balanced people. It doesn't tell you that you can't enjoy good food or wine. In fact, the Talmud teaches us that when someone swears that they're going to be a Nazir and they're not going to have any wine, he has to bring a sacrifice at the end because he's called a sinner, because he deprived himself of something beautiful that the world has to offer. So much so that it says in the Talmud, in the Jerusalem Talmud, that we're going to go to heaven and God's going to say, how come you didn't see my Alps? How come you didn't taste this food? How come you didn't visit this place? I put it there for you. It's like the Jewish grandma who sends their son for Hanukkah 2 amazing ties for the 1940s. You know, they're so wide, there's like straps to kind of tie in the back. It's kind of not so much tie as apron. Anyway, the guy goes to his grandma's house. He figures I'll wear one of the ties, make grandma happy. He walks in and grandma says, what, the other one you didn't like? Hashem, because they love you. God says, I gave you so much. Didn't you enjoy it? The Torah wants you to enjoy life, but it also doesn't want you to be beholden to it. The Torah doesn't ask you to fast except for 1 day a year. The Torah says, give out money, but the Torah also says, be frugal, don't waste. The Torah says, give tzedakah, charity, but not more than 20% so you don't become needy yourself. Balance. In a world that has gone crazy, that is so extreme, whether in politics or in anything, that there's a polarization that people can't even talk to each other. The Torah seeks balance, where we can be passionate about something. Something should be good for me, excite me, light my fire, but also be good for all those around me. I want to tell you, for me, I have a passion. Probably my biggest passion in the world is the Jewish people and how they are seen. I'm thinking about it all the time, probably because of my job, but I'll tell you my highest and lowest moment that both happened in the same place. I was coming back from yeshiva dressed like a yeshiva boy. You know, the jacket, the hat, the black suit, the tzitzit out. And as I'm walking through the airport, I need to go to the bathroom, and there's a long line outside of the bathroom. Maybe 10, 15 people deep. Wait my turn. Finally get into the bathroom. Finish your business. And I'm about to walk out, and my heart sank. Because I saw that whoever had been there before me had not at any point in time decided to aim. On the floor, on the wall, please excuse I'm just sharing with you, this is a painful moment for me. It's everywhere. And you know why my heart sank? Because I knew that the next person who walked in would be like, stinking, filthy Jews. So I made probably the largest ball of toilet paper that has ever been assembled in the history of man. You're clapping. I still get hate mail from the Amazon. This big. I'm cleaning the floors, the wall, the seat. It was so clean. The bathroom has never been that clean. I'm about to walk out. By the way, and you know what I felt like doing? I felt, you know that sheet on the wall that says this guy has cleaned it at 12:22? I was going to write Shlomo Farhi, 127. I'm passionate about the way people look at Jews, especially with a kippah on my head, because I know that people are always saying, God's people. These are God's people. These are God's people. These are the Jews. They stand for something. When I hear someone talking about Israel, I can't help myself. Even if I know it won't help, I need to stand up for her. I need to stand up for my people, for my brothers, for my sisters. When there's an article that comes out and people say in the synagogue, oh, another religious Jew, look at what he did. I said, you know what? Do you get the Hamodia? No, you only get the New York Times, and you're trying to formulate an opinion about the Jewish people from the New York Times, the paper that put out an anti-Semitic cartoon, and then in the middle of the week apologized for it, just in order that they could then print another one in the same week. Get the Hamodia. Find out what Saul Werdiger does for the Jews, or what Ralph Hertzke does for the Jews, or what Aaron Wolfson does for the Jews, or what Eli Horn does for the Jews. But ladies and gentlemen, that is my passion. That is what I go crazy about. That for me is everything. It might not be yours. And sometimes when we go to a speech or to an event like this and we get excited, it's important to remember that our greatest error sometimes is experiencing that which is around us and thinking that it is in us. My thing might not be your thing. But even though that's true, you also have something. Rav Nachman of Breslov is quoted as saying that the day that you were born is the day that God decided that the world could not exist without you. Now for me, that was for one day in an airport at 1:27. But for you, it might be something more important. What is your thing? Which part of the beautiful tapestry of Jewish values, of Jewish continuity, of Jewish heritage, of Jewish identity, which bit lights your fire? What is it that you want to stand up for and make a stand? You know, there was once a man whose name was Rabbi Chanan Wasserman. Unbelievable man. He was the Rosh Yeshiva, the head of a yeshiva in a yeshiva called Baranovich. This man was like Superman. He was here in America during the war. And during the war, everyone said to him, wow, thank God, Rabbi. You're here in America. You've been saved. He said, saved? You think I'm letting my boys face the Nazis without their rabbi? And he went back. And he died. In the final moments, we have eyewitnesses where he told the Jewish students, he said, we are the best of the best. We've been selected to be the sacrifice for all the Jewish people. Let's not go bitterly. Let's go with joy. Let's go with pride. And he walked out to the Nazis and said, shoot me. Did you hear that? So he's in America and he gets a little message from someone. It wasn't a text that hadn't been invented. They had life back then. Oh, this text messaging, huh? So relevant for 20 years ago. Also everything against snail mail. Okay. He gets a message saying that there's a man whose name is Goldstein in the garment district. He used to be a study partner of yours in the yeshiva. Was one of the people who was going to be a great Jewish scholar and a great Jewish leader, just like you. Came to America. Shabbat was so difficult. He got fired every week because he tried to keep Shabbat until eventually it was too tough and he dropped the ball. He now has a massive coat factory in Manhattan. And he's making loads of money, but he has no connection to his Judaism at all. Maybe you could visit him. Maybe you could light the spark. Rabbi Wasserman says, of course. He goes down and he waits for an appointment one day from the beginning until 5 o'clock closing. The secretary says, I'm sorry, he can't see you. The second day, again, he's waiting for the appointment till closing. The third day, it's the last day he's in America. He says, please tell Mr. Goldstein that his chavruta, his study partner, Elchanan Wasserman, would like to see him. It's not 10 seconds before Goldstein is running into the room, tears streaming down his face, throwing his arms around his old friend, not knowing he's going back. And he says, what do I owe this great honor to? One of the greats of the Jewish people comes to visit me in my office. And Rabbi Wasserman says, you know, I remember that we were friends once. And if you look at my coat, the rabbi coat is called a kapota. He says, if you look at my kapota, I have 3 buttonholes and 2 buttons. And that's not how it's supposed to be. Goldstein says, okay. He says, I thought maybe because you have a coat factory, maybe if I came to you in New York, you could sew a button on my kapota. Goldstein says, are you mad? You came here from Europe? It's like thousands of miles. You came from Europe to sew a button on your coat? He says, yeah, you with the coat factory and all. I figured you'd give me a good discount. I think he believed it then. He says, you must be joking. He says, no, I'm serious. He says, Rabbi, stop this game. You must be here for something else. It can't be that you would travel so far and go through so much just to sew a button on a coat. And Rabbi Chanan, his eyes fill with tears. And he grabs his friend who's lost his way with both of his arms. And a giant of a man, he shakes him. And he says, I wish you could hear your own words. You also did not come all this way. From heaven to earth. From Europe to here. From yeshiva to where you are today, just to sew buttons on coats. There must be something more that you were made to do. What is it? Because it can't be buttons. Generations collapsed in front of Rabbi Chanan's eyes. And the two men hugged. And Rabbi Chanan said, why don't we learn a page of Gemara together? And they sit down and learn. And Goldstein finds his way home. I hope that is true about all of us. That we can seek and figure out the reason why we were put here in this place, in this time in history. Why? What is special about you? What is unique about you? What can you do for the cause? And I'll tell you, once you've got that clarity, you know what it's like? You have to hear. It's like, I know I'm going to hell, Rabotai. I don't think many rabbis will tell. I know I'm going to hell, largely because of restaurants. I have this thing, I call the waiter over and I say, so, what's good on the menu? Anyone else do that? What would you like to order, sir? Why don't you tell me what's good? Well, what do you like? Oh, I like everything. Why don't you try the branzino? Not in the mood for fish. You must have that annoying friend. I would be that annoying friend if we were friends. How about pasta? A little heavy. Eventually the guy says, if you don't want any, why don't you just tell me? You know what the answer is? I'm waiting to hear the thing that I know that I like. Because when I hear it, I'll know. You cannot play your part for the Jewish people unless you know what being part of the Jewish people is about. Unless you study the words that have been handed down for generations. Words that our rabbis, our teachers, our fathers and mothers gave their lives to protect. Studied in basements. Gave over in this country. They lit candles behind curtains. There was a young man I met in London whose last name is Confino. I said, that's such an interesting name. Is it Italian? It sounds like a pastry. Doesn't it? I'll have 2 confinos, extra custard. I felt really stupid when he told me what it meant. He said in Spain, the Jews were called either conversos, the ones that converted, or confino, the ones that ran, the ones that left to protect their faith. That was his last name. If your name is Schneider, chances are, in Yiddish, that means that someone was a tailor in your family. If your name is Schneider, someone was a tailor. If your family name is Confino, the runners. My father ran away from Syria so that he could be a Jew proudly in the streets. He escaped, risking his life to get to Israel. My mother grew up without knowing anything in South Bend, Indiana. She was a runner. She came to Israel, to Machon Gold, became a registered nurse, and learned about what it was to be part of the Jewish people and Jewish history. We are all the children of runners. And now we have it on our plate. Let's listen to the menu and pick out the thing that really speaks to us. And then take one step. This morning, and I'll end with this, I was walking through the airport and I saw that there were 2 escalators and everyone was going down one of them. Do you ever see that? It's like when there's 2 lines at security and the guy's like, you could go in that line. Everyone's like, no, no, no. And then suddenly one guy goes and everyone's like. How come no one was going down the other escalator? Because the other escalator wasn't escalating. Wasn't moving. So everyone's going down the escalator. And then I walk up to the other escalator and I stand on it just to be different. And the second I put my foot on it, what happened? It escalated. So many times we're afraid of taking the first step because we don't know how we're going to get all the way to the finish line. But once you take the first step, Hashem says, you're being my people. You're being people that stand up for what I want, what I need from my children in this world. I'll help you. Trust that that will happen. You know, some people are really afraid that if they try and do something or create a program, maybe it won't be good. And I'll leave you, as I said, with the words of Stephen Schiff, who spoke about CPR. And he said the funny thing about CPR is that CPR doesn't have to be perfect to be life-saving. Some bystanders, they feel squeamish, they're not sure if they're going to do it right, etc., etc. Getting past those psychological fears, he said, and denial means more lives could potentially be saved. Some CPR is better than no CPR. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I could just hear my grandpa saying these words to me. Your CPR isn't going to make them voice, but it sure could make them better. It doesn't have to be perfect. Whatever you do, bring your best, bring your passion, bring your heart, bring your dream, and God will see to it that your dream becomes a reality. Thank you for listening. Make us proud.